Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Steven Universe Retrospectives. I apologize if you hear some banging as I'm doing this vlog. The neighbors are currently doing, I think, roof work, so odds are they've been banging all morning, so odds are you might end up hearing it in the background, so apologies in advance. But anyway, today we're going to be discussing episodes 151 and 152 of Steven Universe, Familiar and Together Alone. So, to recap, Ruby and Sapphire, who make up Garnet, wound up splitting up upon learning that Rose Quartz was in actuality Pink Diamond. While both are able to come to terms with this knowledge, they also wound up reevaluating their relationship and decided that while they did still want to be together, they wanted it to be on their terms, resulting in the pair of them getting married. It was a nice ceremony, very beautiful, friends and loved ones were all there, but on the same day as the wedding, Yellow Diamond and Blue Diamond attacked Earth to try and get the cluster. Thanks to the combined efforts of Steven, the Crystal Gems, and even the cluster itself, they're able to take down Blue and Yellow ships, but sadly Blue and Yellow weren't down for the count. Though thankfully Steven was able to win them over by revealing to them that he was technically Pink Diamond, which made them more than happy as they spent the last 6,000 years believing that Pink Diamond was shattered. As such, with them kind of now listening to Steven, he wound up showing them the corrupted gems, or more specifically, he showed them Centipedal, and while Yellow, Blue, and Steven's collective powers could restore a corrupted gem, as they were able to restore Centipede to her original form, who was actually named Nephrite, they sadly could not sadly not hold it together. As the instant all three of them let go, Nephrite reverted back into Centipedal, and so everyone believes that the only way that they can make the changes stick is if they had the extra power of the fourth diamond in their hierarchy, White Diamond, which sadly getting her on board with all this is a task easier said than done. As such, after managing to find what's left of Pink Diamond ship, Steven, the Crystal Gems, Connie, Yellow, and Blue end up going off to space, with Bismuth staying behind to both repair Steven's house and look after Lapis and Peridot, who were pooped in the ensuing battle. And upon arriving on Homeworld, Steven did get to see White Diamond for like maybe half a minute before she shoot him off and sent him essentially back to his room, which was basically just a room in which was basically just his own little palace where Steven landed the Pink Diamond ship. And that's where Familiar actually opens up, as Steven is just kind of wondering what the hell he's going to do. There's basically nothing in the room, it's all blank, and the only real bit of decorations here are basically these pink veil curtains overlooking a balcony that looks out into the rest of Homeworld. As such, Steven begins wondering what to do, and he begins saying, well, I could really use a bed right now, as he lies on the floor, and a bed suddenly appears. And when he sees where it came from, he looks under, and he sees these little creatures. They're clearly meant to be gems as well, but these ones are more, not as, they're all very small, very gray, and all very impish to a degree, but their main purpose seems to be construction. And which Steven starts realizing as he begins testing it out by saying, I want a place to sit, so they make him a chair. And to try and actually see these creatures, he says, I want a shelf for my face, and so he's able to see them, and we learn that these creatures are called pebbles, and like I said, they're just here to do busy work, build anything you require them. And, well, they're very much a little nervous about seeing Steven, though when he says thank you to them, that does warm them up to him immediately, because apparently the pebbles don't get a lot of thanks for what they do, and Pink Diamond was one of the few people that did. So Steven saying thank you has affirmed to them that this kid is in fact Pink Diamond. At which point they just start crawling all over his face, and one even takes Steven's phone. That's lovely. But either way, as Steven is familiarizing himself with the pebbles, the door to his room opens and in walks in Pearl, who it turns out was allowed to leave the ship, as well, she's technically Steven's Pearl, so basically they allow her to have free reign because, well, she has to bring Steven his things, and they consider her one of his things. However, the pair of them don't really have long to chat, as they hear what looks like a chime when once again another Pearl enters the room, specifically Yellow Pearl, who claims that Yellow Diamond wants to see Steven in a place called the Extraction Chamber, which is pretty much just a glorified sauna. Basically, from what I can tell, I think the extraction chamber is where they literally extract a diamond's essence. They sweat it out, and then it gets pooled, and they use it and essentially that essence is what's used to, help make new gems, so to speak, which I kind of find interesting, as after all, the diamonds are meant to be like at the top of the hierarchy, and, well, the material to make gems doesn't just come from nowhere. We know the injectors are responsible for it, but where do they get it? So, I do at least find that interesting a bit. But either way, Steven Steven and Pearl accompany Yellow Pearl to the extraction chamber, encountering a few gems that are literally just there to be walls, so that's kind of creepy. And so Steven is able to go inside in a swimsuit because, well, going in his regular clothes would be overkill. And he and Yellow Diamond are able to talk. And basically, Steven just lets Yellow know just how badly things went with White, about how all he really could say was hi, and I, which even Yellow says that even getting 2.5 words out like that is a record. But even then, Steven knows that they still need to get White on board, with going back to Earth, so he can heal all the corrupted gems, but Yellow just tells Steven that, again, that task is easier said than done, as White has not left her head in a long time, which also causes her to redirect the conversation back to herself, as she talks about how she's managed hundreds upon hundreds of successful colonies, and yet Steven gets to see White just because Pink's one colony failed. So I find that fun. So, in which Steven even says, well, why don't you just try failing? At which point Yellow just kind of laughs at that. However, the conversation really doesn't go any further as Yellow is called away to perform her own duties. So basically, her and Steven's conversation is cut short. But no sooner does that end when Blue Pearl shows up and says that Blue Diamond wants to see Steven as well, and it leads them to a large bath. I guess I want to just say a large bathhouse where we see just Blue Diamond bathing. And before anyone wonders, no, she doesn't bathe naked. You have to remember that Gem's clothes are literally meant to be their own appearance. So basically, she just goes in fully dressed, which I guess doesn't really matter to a Diamond, but whatever. Either way, Blue Diamond is actually more happy to see Steven, as she just is happy to have Pink Diamond back to reminisce about the good old days. And basically, she even starts kind of lightly poking fun at Steven's name, as apparently Pink Diamond likes to give weird names to things, and she thinks that Pink calling herself Steven is just another one of those weird, silly names. So even though she calls him Steven once, it's mostly just there so she can kind of have fun with the words. But either way, she continues reminiscing about all the good times that Steven and the other Diamonds had, including having a game where they came to this very bathing area, and Pink Diamond would just be under the water singing, and the other Diamonds would be above the water trying to guess what it was she was singing. But Steven's like, oh wait, the other Diamonds are here, could we do that again? But once again, Blue affirms exactly what Yellow said, that White Diamond doesn't come out for much anymore. So odds are, if he tried to have a meeting like that here, it wouldn't go so well, which doesn't really make Steven happy, because again, he needs to actually have words with White Diamond in order to convince her to come back to Earth with them. But once again, Steven and Blue don't get a lot of chances to talk about this before she's called away for her duties. At which point she leaves, the bathing area is drained, and Steven kind of needs Pearl's help to get out of it. As such, Steven goes back to his room, and yeah, Steven starts lamenting just how crappy this mission is going so far. He hasn't really had a chance to talk to any of the Diamonds about going back to Earth, and while Yellow and Blue, we at least know, are halfway there, they need White to be on board, as I keep saying. And basically, he needs an opportunity to at least speak with her, but it seems like she's a very reclusive creature, as she has not left her head in eons. But as such, Steven starts wondering, what exactly did Pink Diamond do during all this? And it seems like that Pink didn't really have a lot, as most of the conversations that Steven had with Yellow and Blue seem to imply that Pink was mostly there for amusement. That's kind of sucky. But ultimately, there is one thing that apparently Pink did that everyone loved. Namely, she threw balls, which Steven first thinks is juggling, which it turns out Pink also did. But basically, Pink Diamond would actually just throw elaborate balls to celebrate all of the conquest the Diamonds performed, and it was such a big deal that almost everyone attended, including all 4 Diamonds. So Steven believes that if he can throw his own ball, then maybe, just maybe, they can actually get all the Diamonds together. However, when talk of Pink Diamond's court comes up, Pearl says that she actually has an idea, that she has something for Steven, and so she runs out of the room, leaving Steven alone. But in that time, Steven does have a moment to kind of contemplate on how badly things are going, which also leads to the titular song of the episode, Familiar. And it's actually a very sweet, nice song, very nice to sing along to. It's very soothing, but the song is basically Steven lamenting about how all of this with the Diamonds trying to get their attention, trying to hang out with them, and then just kind of being brushed off and saying, we'll talk later. It all feels very familiar. Something like he used to know. And yes, I know I'm quoting lyrics, but they're very appropriate for this. And basically, And basically, he starts realizing that must be what Pink Diamond felt like when she was living on Homeworld. And so as Steven continues thinking about all of this, he even manages to make his way further into Pink's room and finds that she had her own little vanity area. And in the vanity area, she had a bunch of drawings of her talking with the other gems. And again, and we even see this little scene that further proves how the Diamond's sweat seems to be able to create new gems, as a little bit of Steven's sweat, which is pink, most likely from a special material from the extraction chamber, ends up dropping on a little rock, and it's brought to life and turned into another pebble. So I like that. It's kind of cool. But as Steven is looking through all these pictures, it suddenly hits him, and he realizes why this feels so familiar. It's like with Steven when he was younger, when he wanted to try and hang out with the crystal gems and wanted to say, I'm a crystal gem too, I want to keep doing what you guys are doing. And he starts realizing that's what Pink was. Pink did the exact same thing with yellow, blue, and white. She was a diamond too, after all. She wanted the same level of treatment as them. She wanted to be taken seriously, and that's exactly what Steven feels. Except this time, Steven's had experience with this. He's lived through that with the crystal gems. So he thinks he knows exactly what he needs to do to get the other diamonds to listen. And as he's saying this, the pebbles are actually taking Steven's measurements and using whatever available material they have. They actually make him a new outfit, which is basically just a cloth version of Pink Diamond's dress, so to speak. Only this time it's outfitted specifically for Steven. And yes, the shoes still have those weird little floaty ball things. I don't know why they do. It's just weird. My point is ultimately, Steven thinks he finally has a way of actually getting through the diamonds, and no sooner does the song Familiar end, that Pearl comes back in and shows what the surprise is, as she managed to run back to the ship, and she managed to sneak Connie, Amethyst, and Garnet out through her Pearl, as she bolts them out, and the episode ends with Steven happy to see them, and letting them know that he's gonna get through to the diamonds and throw a ball, which leads to the next episode, Together Alone, and Together Alone starts out a little trippy, as it begins with Steven in his palace, juggling, throwing little bubbles of all of his personal possessions and just kind of having fun. And we get a little tidbit. So, White Pearl, who said last episode looked very creepy and sterile, with how she used to be, with how her color scheme was just literally white and gray, and how she seemed to be very much more sterile than everything else on Homeworld. Apparently, she used to be Pink's original Pearl, as we see her in Steven's dream, and she looks fine, like completely fine, and her color scheme is now different. It's now a brighter pink with different shades. She smiles, she's expressive, and we see that as Steven in the dream is playing around, she's just laughing with him. Even to the point where they have little in-jokes where whenever one of the diamonds goes to check on Steven, they act all formal, but when the diamonds are gone, Steven and Pink Pearl just make fun of them. So yes, basically it's just Steven. So basically, yeah, this is kind of sort of a flashback / dream, as that's basically just hobbling together aspects of Pink Diamond's memories with Steven's, but the dream ultimately ends terribly, as while Steven is laughing with Pink Pearl, he ends up coughing up a bit of pink hair. At which point, as he does that, the entire mood of the dream shifts as everything goes black, Pink Pearl vanishes, and when Steven looks around, he finds that in her place is White Diamond, who's just smiling creepily down at him as Steven continues coughing up more pink hair until he just straight up vomits out more of what looks like Rose's hair before he just wakes up. At which point, when Steven awakes, he finds that Pink Diamond's palace has now been retrofitted so that it looks more like Steven's house, which does make everyone feel more comfortable, but there's still the matter of getting through to the diamonds, which Steven is more nervous about, but Connie and everyone else assure him that everything's going to be fine. As such, Steven ends up going to meet with Blue and Yellow in their court, and does propose the ball, and well, Blue and Yellow are actually for it. More Blue specifically, but Yellow does quickly come on board, as after all, with Pink Diamond back, that's the start of a new era 3, everyone. So maybe this is the best way to ring it in. So as such, Blue and Yellow do sign off on this, and even to help Steven out, they give him their pearls so that they can help him plan for the ball. Especially since Steven isn't familiar with Homeworld's rituals, I guess. Customs. Yes, that's the word. Sorry, I was blanking on the word. But either way, as Steven and his friends are left alone with the pearls, Steven starts learning that A gem ball is a lot more sterile than than a regular ball, as as while there is music and people show up in their celebrations, Steven himself is just expected to sit on his ass in Pink Diamond's throne while everyone else just dances and sings around him. Even the most he's supposed to even do during a ball is just to greet everyone that comes up and accept or reject them. So basically, Steven doesn't look like it. Steven thinks this is kind of boring, and as such, the question is raised to the Pearls, what do you do to have fun around here? Which Blue and Yellow Pearl really have no idea what fun is, which I find stupid, but whatever. Which, as such, they explain that fun is just literally doing whatever you want to do for the sake of doing it because you enjoy it. At which point, Yellow Pearl says, "Oh, we don't do that around here. My opinion doesn't mean anything, so it doesn't really matter for me." But Blue Pearl affirms that she does actually have such a hobby. She likes to draw. With Blue Diamond allowing her Pearl to draw during court proceedings, and we see that which she even brings up some of her drawings, and yeah, they are pretty good drawings. As such, Yellow Pearl wants to see them and says that she can't show them off because they're confidential information. They're from trials after all. But then she finds a picture of her, and her vain side comes out a little bit and says, "Hey, how would you get me from a different angle?" And she starts posing. At which point, yeah, we see that Yellow Pearl also likes, being a model. As such, everyone's kind of laughing and joking until Blue Diamond enters the fray and asks what the hell Steven is doing. As such, Steven says that it seems like he's got everything he needs, and he thinks that they'll all be ready for the ball, but Blue isn't exactly okay with Steven bringing his Earth friends, as she calls them, as again, they're all, to put it in homeworld terms, her friends are off color. After all, Pearl is a lot more outspoken than your average Pearl. Garnet's a fusion, which Blue Diamond even starts throwing pot shots at right there in the throne room. Which, you know what? Fuck her for that. And Amethyst is a runt. Basically, all of them aren't really fitting the standards. Hell, even Connie they consider to be Steven's pet, so to speak. Well, I'm sure Nolan Grayson would be proud. But point is, they don't want these people to be arriving. They don't want these people coming to the ball. But Steven says that it's fine, they'll be fine. And so Blue says that they could potentially come to the ball. After all, Pearl is still Steven's Pearl, and Connie is still his pet, so she can still come. But at the very least, Amethyst needs to have limb enhancers, and Garnet needs to split up. Which, at first, Steven's not okay with, but Garnet says that it's fine, she just won't go to the ball. With even Blue saying, at least the Sapphire in there has some sense, like, yeah, you need your daily reminder that these are the bad guys. There you go. But point is, while Steven's not exactly happy with this arrangement, the other gems assure Steven that that it's fine, it's for the best. If this is the best way they can get to talk to White Diamond, then they have to go through with it. As such, this does kind of reaffirm Steven's resolve in all this, and so the episode cuts ahead to that evening as the ball is in full swing. And if I'll give another thing to this episode, the ball is very much as sterile a ball as you can have. The music feels the music feels very sterile. The party guests feel like they're just literal cogs in a machine, both in how they talk and how they freaking look. And it just all feels off, very off. There's no joy in any of this. It's just literally custom for the sake of custom. Which I'll get more into my thoughts on the whole sterileness when I get to my thoughts on these episodes, but it works. It very much works. But either way, yeah, people do start coming to the ball, greeting Steven as they call him Pink Diamond. We see that the crystal gems have even managed to show up. Amethyst has gotten the limb enhancers, and while she can't really utilize them properly, she's getting the hang of them, and even manages to use one of the fingers to do a little funny trick. And it turns out, yeah, even Garnet showed up. Only in this case, she separated back into Ruby and Sapphire, who are grouping together with the other rubies and sapphires. So which Steven is a little upset by, but Connie assures him that odds are Garnet just wanted to be here to support him, so she was willing to take a shot for the team. As such, but either way, with all the regular guests arriving, it's time for the Diamonds to show up. First is Yellow Diamond, who's greeted magnanimously. I suck with words. Point is her Pearl gives her a grand entrance, and Yellow takes her seat. The same goes with Blue Diamond's Pearl, who gives her a grand entrance. And so when it looks like it's time for White Diamond to come in, her Pearl comes in, lets everyone know that White Diamond has other better things to do than being here, which gets on Steven's nerves. Made even worse when when White Pearl says that in White Diamond's stead, she'll take her seat, and thus begins Era 3, and as such, this is not making Steven very happy. After all, he forced everyone to do this because he thought that it would be their best chance to talk to White Diamond, but she bailed. She's not even coming to this stupid thing, so it looks like everyone's miserable without anything for it. However, Connie does try assuring Steven that it's fine, and that if they can't talk to White Diamond, at least just enjoy the party. As such, she invites Steven to dance, and while he is hesitant because it's not proper, again, Connie just tells Steven, it's fine. It's fine. It's his party. He should be able to enjoy it. And so she manages to talk him into going onto the dance floor. And what I like is that while everyone is staring, nobody actually does anything to stop it. In fact, to give a little tidbit, while Steven and Connie are just kind of having fun on the dance floor, White Pearl is just still in her position in White Diamond's seat, and she's smiling the whole time that Steven and Connie are dancing. So yes, while what Steven and Connie are doing is a little out there, it's not inappropriate, so to speak. It's not proper, but it's not breaking any rules, so no one really cares. What does get everyone's attention, though, is that while Steven and Connie are dancing, they fuse into Stevonnie, which causes everyone to go shocked, and even for White Pearl's smile to turn into a frown. At which point, everyone is so shocked that even Yellow and Blue are telling Steven to knock this off. What he's doing is very much improper. Which at first Stevonnie's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Before they realize that Steven and Connie fused. However, as everyone's telling Stevonnie to unfuse, that this is very much not okay, that they have to unfuse, immediately the other crystal gems jump to their defense, as immediately Ruby and Sapphire run in and fuse back into Garnet, and Pearl even leaves her position, runs up to Amethyst, and they fuse into Opal, saying that the Diamonds want Stevonnie, they gotta go through them. As well as some unnamed other fusion whose individual gems we saw in a crowd earlier in the episode. Which, what I love is that when this new fusion pops up, she says, so you gotta go through me too! At which point Stevonnie and Opal just look at Garnet, she's like, all these people. I don't know, I find that funny. Either way, this unnamed fusion is at first happy to see that that she's not the only one out there, that there are other gems like them. Until suddenly she gets zapped by Yellow Diamond, and not just her. Both Garnet and Opal are also zapped too, and the end result is all of those gems are poofed, leaving Stevonnie all by their lonesome. At which point, Yellow Diamond just goes up to Stevonnie, picks him up, and tells them that this is too inappropriate even for Pink Diamond. At which point, the episode ends as Yellow Diamond tells Stevonnie that they're essentially grounded, and they throw them into a dark room, telling them to think about what they've done before slamming the door in Stevonnie's face as they plead to talk to someone. So, everything went to hell. Alright, so my thoughts on these episodes. So first, let's talk about Familiar. As again, another follow-up to the big events that happened with Reunited and Legs from Here to Homeworld. I like it. In a sense, it does kind of feel like an appropriate breather episode. Because, for starters, from Legs from Here to Homeworld helped really quickly set up that's the change in scenery for Steven and the Crystal Gems. That ultimately they are now they're once again back in the Lion's Den, as Bismuth put it, and they're back on Homeworld. Which again, as I mentioned when talking about the ball, I still enjoy how sterile and alien the gem Homeworld really is. Just like when Steven and Lars are brought there during the trial, what we see of Homeworld in these two episodes, it feels just as sterile and cold as it did in those episodes. Oh yes, it's full again. Like I said for those episodes, it's just as bright and colorful as it is there, but you can feel there is no sense of joy to it. And the fact that Steven is now able to freely roam around Homeworld without repercussions or getting in trouble kind of allows us to see more of the twisted, sterile underbelly of the whole thing. Like for starters, we see that gems on the gem Homeworld aren't just subjects that are assigned to do jobs. They're quite literally the foundation that everything is built with. When Steven goes to see Yellow Diamond in her extraction chamber, like I said, he encounters walls that are quite literally gems. Their whole purpose for existing are to be walls. And the instant that these walls realize that Steven is listening in on them whispering, they all clam up. And when Steven says hi, they just blush and try not to make eye contact. That's honestly really fucked up in a sense. And even it continues on when Steven goes to see Blue Diamond. There's a statue outside of the outside of the bathing room, and the statue is very much alive as we see it blink briefly. And when Steven goes to see Blue Diamond, she's combing her hair with a comb that's quite literally singing. It's creepy. It's all really creepy and sterile and off-putting. And that extends further to kind of go into Together Alone to the ball in Together Alone. As in that episode, as despite the fact that the ball is meant to be a celebration of everything, it still just feels very off, very much without joy or emotion or feeling. It just feels like there's nothing there. Like everyone's only doing what there's like, despite the fact that everyone's putting on a happy face and there's music and so forth, there is no joy to be found here. It's just quite literally cogs in a machine doing what they're told. The music does not feel like it's something you can dance to and have fun with. It just feels well, alien, just creepy, just creepy, disturbing, like everything is just off. And I dig that. I love that. I love how that works in the episode, as it further cements just how bad this thing is. Just like with how that it's that sense of sterileness and alien. Just how that sterile and alien nature benefited before when Steven was trapped on home with Lars. It continues adding to these two episodes by showcasing that Steven very much is still in unfamiliar territory. Yeah, he's here as a friend now, but it's very clear that this is still a setting without joy, and that ultimately Steven's tactics won't be as effective here as they were on Earth. He can't just go around having fun and smiling and talking to everyone socially. The whole society of the Gem Homeworld is very much just straight to business. Everyone has a thing they can do, and any moments of calm are just that. Moments. Everyone has a job to do. Even the diamonds have jobs to do. And the little social moments they have with Steven are very brief, and the only reason they can even do it is because, well, they're doing something else, and that other thing allows them some time to, socialize a little. So I do still like how that sterile nature fits in, as it really does get put into perspective that how much of an uphill battle Steven is facing here to just even talk to the one in charge of all these gems. So I dig that. It's still nice. And familiar, I think, further adds to that as we see Steven kind of getting more familiarized with how everything works on the Gem Homeworld, as now that he's Pink Diamond, he starts kind of quote-unquote fulfilling her duties. As he goes to meet with Yellow in an extraction chamber, he socializes with Blue in the bathing area, and then likewise, when everything's done, he has to learn exactly what it is that Pink Diamond did. And based on the testimonies he got from Yellow and Blue, it seems like that Pink Diamond was just essentially the court jester. Like, that's gotta suck. And in a way, you can kind of help add that little bit of connection between Steven and his mother. As something I kind of find amusing is that from what we did see of Rose in earlier episodes, she was kind of a goofball. She was very silly and didn't really feel like this warm motherly figure that everyone said that she was. And so likewise, to kind of have that further affirmed in the familiar episode, as we learn that even among the diamonds, Pink Diamond was just kind of a goof. It's kind of in a way, it's kind of adorable, but you can also kind of understand why Pink probably had her tantrums like she did. Like, going back to the Jungle Moon episode, in that episode, we saw Pink Diamond throwing a fit when she wasn't taken as seriously as the other diamonds, because ultimately, she was a diamond. She was supposed to be as important as the other ones, and yet she was constantly pushed aside. Now, again, personality-wise, you can understand that case, because after all, if she is a goofball who tends to act very very silly most of the time. Odds are you wouldn't exactly trust her with a colony. She'd probably blow it up in her first week. So I can understand that, but the fact that she wanted to be taken seriously and wanted to be given that responsibility, and yet she was continuously denied that, you can kind of understand that. And that kind of is a good parallel to Steven and his situation, which even Steven recognizes. As when Steven was born and wanted to become a member of the Crystal Gems, it was an uphill battle. After all, he was the token human of the group, and he was in the beginning of the series, he struggled with even getting his powers to work. He was able to figure out ways to get around this handicap as he was resourceful and smart, as we saw in earlier episodes, but even then, it was clear that he still had some wiggle room to grow. As while he was competent, he was still messed up in some areas. And ultimately, Steven did kind of have to work for that, and like his mother before him, he just wanted to be taken seriously. He wanted to be considered a member of the team, and he worked hard to get there. And that's what ultimately makes him realize that he can do this, that he can do this and talk to the Diamonds. Because, like he said, he's been in a situation like this before. Maybe not under the same circumstances, but a similar setup. The Diamonds were to Pink Diamond what the Crystal Gems were to Steven. They were family. They were technically better than him, and he just wanted to be one. And both Steven and his mom just wanted to be part of the family, so to speak. And so I like that Steven kind of takes that to heart and uses that to kind of realize, okay, this is what I need to do in order to get them to listen. I dig that. It's nice. Otherwise though, Familiar really does kind of, on the whole, Familiar just feels like a world-building episode. It further establishes that this is more of an uphill battle, as Steven does try talking with the other Diamonds and keeps hitting roadblocks at each step, and further sets up just how even further cements that when we see that everything in Homeworld is still just as sterile as it was when we last saw it. So it really gives an oppressive tone and makes you realize that Steven very much has his work cut out for him here. So, on the whole, Familiar is a good episode, and I dig it. Whereas Together Alone is where the boot drops. And what I do like about this episode is that, like with Familiar, it still feels like that things could go wrong very quickly. Because, as I've stated, the only reason the Diamonds are not going after Steven and his friends now is because Steven is technically a Diamond himself. But even with that in mind, Steven is off color. He is not what he's supposed to be, and you have to remember one very important thing. Steven is not Pink Diamond. He grew up on Earth, with Earth customs, surrounded by gems that embraced Earth's culture and tried to kind of better themselves every day. He had a human father who instilled within him values. He grew up in a society with people who were friendly and outgoing, and who helped Steven express himself. And now here Steven is put in an environment where everything is sterile, or everything is cold, and everyone says, do these things this way, or you're doing it wrong. So kind of putting that in motion. Throughout the episode, we see Steven's ideology continually clashing with that of Homeworld's ideology, and we see that showcased just as early as when Steven is planning for the ball. While he tries to get Yellow and Blue Diamond's pearls to come out of their shells and do what they like to do, with Blue Pearl liking drawing and Yellow Pearl liking modeling, but even that is kind of put the kibosh on it, and Steven learns that when a proper procedure for a gem homeworld ball is that he literally just sits on his ass while everyone else does everything for him. And from what we see in the ball, even that has a certain order to everything. So basically, even then, Steven really is not allowed to kind of do anything else beyond that. And even when Steven says that he wants to invite his friends, at first he's just told outright no. But the only reason that they're allowed to come because Steven kept pushing, and even then, there's restrictions on them. Pearl has to stay in her position as Steven's Pearl. Connie is considered Steven's pet. Ruby and Sapphire have to come separately, and Amethyst needs limb enhancers if she even wants to be standing alongside the other Amethysts and Quartz soldiers. So it very much just showcases that thing that while Steven is trying to stay in control, while Steven is trying to try and make things go his way, he's again clashing with the entire ideology of an entirely different world, a world that values order and simplicity over creativity and color, so to speak, and which again is ironic considering how colorful Homeworld literally is, but as a society, it's very much clear that everything here is maintained like clockwork. So it's very much a sense. It very much gives a sense that even as Steven continues clashing, you just were waiting for that boot to drop, because ultimately, while everyone is tolerating Steven's ideologies now, that's again only because he's a diamond. There needs to be at some point he's gonna say something that will clash with everything else, and suddenly this entire mission will go foobar, and quite frankly, it does. As the instant that Steven and Connie fuse, immediately everything goes wrong, because while they are willing to tolerate a lot of Pink Diamond shenanigans, well, this just crosses a line, and they tell Steven and Connie to unfuse, and when they refuse, things just go even more wrong. As even though the Crystal Gems try standing up for Stevonnie and say that if the diamonds want them, they have to go through them. Well, immediately they do, as Yellow Diamond just starts shooting everyone and then just throws Stevonnie into timeout. It immediately just throws everything to the wind, makes everything go wrong, and immediately just kind of breaks the whole mood. As before, everything was kind of steady, but you're mostly on track. But here, here, it's like Steven was kicked right off of that track and is now just falling to his doom. And I like that, because this antagonistic, toxic behavior is very much showcased to essentially be, well, it's shown to be the norm here. And what I like about that is that it really gives a sense of why Pink Diamond probably did leave Homeworld when she did, because you are shown just how toxic of a family that she had. Going off the diamonds one by one, you have White Diamond, who is very much a narcissistic monster who wants everything to go her way. And so much so that while you don't ever actually see her in either of these episodes, based on everyone's reactions when they talk about her, everyone is just so afraid of displeasing her. When Blue Diamond hears about how Steven wants to throw the ball and how he invites his friends, she freaks out. It's like, no, we have to show our best selves. That's what White Diamond expects. Like, that's what you can sense, a hint of fear in her voice. Like, she wants to try and make sure that they do not displease White Diamond, even despite the fact that they are diamonds themselves. They should be the ones in charge of all this stuff. And yet White Diamond is the one they all fear. There is something definitely chilling to that. And the fact that White Diamond doesn't, and the fact that the one time we did see White Diamond in these episodes had her just essentially take control of a conversation to the point where Steven could barely get a word out, lets you know that lets you know how orderly White Diamond tends to have everything, and that the Gem Society kind of follows that same mantra. Everything goes exactly according to plan. Don't step out of that pre-established order. This is what we need. This is what you have to do, and this is what you have to do. And anything that doesn't fit is wiped away, which really, it's very much, it feels, not only creates an oppressive feeling, but a sense of fear, as all it takes is one thing not fitting into her perfect little hierarchy, that eventually all it'll take is one thing not fitting in, and that little thing will be wiped away, no matter what or who it is. So immediately that creates an oppressive and fearful environment, especially in the family setting. And even Blue and Yellow Diamond in these episodes, we see more of their toxic personalities. Like, we already know Yellow's toxic personality traits. She's very much straight to work, orderly type A personality. As everything has to go her way, she mostly thinks about work, and in a way she's a little narcissistic, as she tends to kind of think more about her own accomplishments versus everyone else's. She keeps belittling everyone around her, even people she wants, people she wants to be, even people that she's supposed to be close to, and it very much makes it clear that she's got a kind of slight narcissistic personality. And part of the reason why she probably even liked Pink at all was because Pink said things that made her laugh, and that kind of helped kind of bring a little light to her life. But ultimately, even when she was talking to Steven and actually actually hearing what he had to say, it was clear she was only half listening. And part of the conversation was mostly just about her and her accomplishments and how she put all this effort into doing all these things right, and yet all Steven had to do was fuck something up, and he was able to actually see White Diamond. So again, it shows the toxic personality traits there. Yellow Diamond sees everything kind of going for her, and how everything she does is to essentially show just how perfect she is in the society, and that if something is not going right, then she starts getting upset, even if the people that cause that are people that she's supposed to love. And then likewise, you get Blue Diamond, who, while more understanding than Yellow, very much falls into a different category of toxic personality traits, as she is emotionally manipulative. While she's the one that kind of gives Steven leeway in what he wants to do, it's very much clear that these are essentially power plays. That she gives Steven gives Steven leeway in certain areas so that he'll listen to commands in other areas. So, like, for example, while she gives Steven leeway in that he can invite all of it, he can invite the crystal gems to the ball. Ultimately, she tells him that they have to come into procedure, and that they have to do all these things. And while Steven tries arguing for certain things, and while Steven does try talking with Blue about meeting with White Diamond, she's more concerned reminiscing about the good times. And it's very clear that how she manipulates everything is essentially by appealing to your emotions, making you feel guilty about doing something out of line. And it's, again, a very toxic trait. And it showcases that while she comes across as the more gentle of the diamonds, she's just as much of a toxic POS as her sibling is. And that ultimately emotions are her power. She's able, we've already probably seen that. We've seen her literally use her grief as a weapon in previous episodes. But the thing is, she not only has the power to make people feel her emotions, but she's able to manipulate them. Not through her powers, but through her words, through her actions. She's able to make people kind of fall in line based on just a few words, a bit of a wavering voice, and just kind of a few scoffs. She is very much in the mindset of if you don't do what I say, I'll make you feel bad about it till you change your mind. It's honestly very much feels just off, and it shows just how much of a toxic personality she is, and just how, again, oppressive this environment is. And the more toxic that you see it, the more you're just waiting for things to go wrong, because Steven does not back down. Steven has faced other things before, and he grew up in an environment that encouraged freedom of choice, freedom of living, freedom of just to do whatever the heck he wanted. And so likewise, kind of go into an environment that's just this strict and controlling and so manipulative. You can just know that eventually Steven's going to do, and that you just know that while Steven is being given a little bit more freedoms because of his status as a diamond, at the very least, you just know that something is going to go wrong. That all it takes is just one little push, and everything will go belly up. And we see that showcased by the end of the episode, that despite the fact that Steven is a diamond, he should be allowed to do whatever he wants. Essentially, by just fusing among the other diamonds, he's considered taboo now, as immediately they zap anyone that agrees with him, and then throw Stevani into a room to essentially think about what they've done. It's, again, very much. Again, it really sets up just how toxic of an environment this truly is. That despite the fact that Steven should hold the same amount of authority as these colorful bitches over here, ultimately they don't take him as seriously as he should. And any attempts on his part to try and get them to listen to him are doomed to failure because ultimately just like Pink done before him, Steven has to fit into the mold. And if he doesn't fit into that, and if he doesn't fit, they'll make him fit, whether he likes it or not. I like that. Again, I like that. I don't like that kind of how everything came together like that. I openly admit, whenever a train wreck is coming up, I just visibly cringe and look away. So, and even when rewatching the episode for these vlogs, I wound up pausing briefly, and when I realized, okay, gotta get back to the episode, I just had to grit my teeth and bear it. But ultimately, again, it works to the episode's benefit as it further establishes just how badly things are, and that while Steven has tried making progress toward his ultimate goal, he's now even further behind than he was before. So again, it really creates this oppressive atmosphere. And the end of the episode really just kind of creates a sense of fear as it makes you wonder how Steven is going to get out of this. So, yeah, on the whole, familiar, good episode, nice little break of an episode that lets you familiarize yourself with the world, with how Homeworld works as a hierarchy in day-to-day life, especially with seeing Steven interacting with the Diamonds while showcasing more of their honestly toxic personality traits. Which another subtle thing with their personalities is that when you see Yellow Diamond and Ursana, the buttons that turn everything on and off consist of 3 diamonds: yellow, white, and blue. Whereas Blue Diamond's sprint bathing area has all 4 stacked up on top of each other. But either way, again, Familiar is a good episode, does well in building the world, while likewise Together Alone gets the ball rolling, but continually creates a great sense of tension as we see Steven's ideals clashing with that of Homeworld before things finally come to a head when he and Connie fuse into Stevani, and ultimately Stevani is thrown into another room to think about what they've done, while Steven's friends are all poofed right there in the ballroom. So, yeah, again, both are good episodes, and both create a serious sense of tension as to what the hell's going to happen next. So overall, enjoy them. So, yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I hope to see you next week as we finally reach the end of Steven Universe. So till then, hope you have a good day, and take care.